morning, everyone. I am Lorna, and I'm so thankful to see all of you here to talk about Read Georgia and childhood literacy. And I know that isn't always a topic that we might think we would gather together to talk about as churches, but we believe it's really important. We just sang, we believe, so that was perfectly done. I put a few things at each setting. I hope it'll be helpful. I'll talk about those in just a moment, but don't let them get on your nerves. Hope it'll be helpful. What I'd like to do just for the few minutes before we eat, I am keeping that in mind. I know that's important. I want to talk just a little bit about Mission Georgia, just so you kind of understand the context of why we're talking about childhood literacy. And then I want to talk with you about why are we talking about this as churches? Why is it important? Why don't we let other people kind of wrestle with this issue? Why are we involved in it? And then I do want to talk specifically about Read Georgia. So you're going to hear some next steps and things that you can consider as an individual or as a church or as an association about how you can be involved through what we call Read Georgia, which is a tool to help with that. And then we'll close with a little bit of a Q&A. Okay, so definitely, if you have questions, I have a feeling you came with questions. I hope maybe as we talk through this, some of those will be answered, and maybe there'll be some things that I share and it'll stir up some questions. So we definitely want to have a good Q&A together there towards the end. And so that's kind of the forecast for the day, for the next 30 minutes. It'll be a quick 30 minutes, but I hope it'll be helpful. You know, I always like to share from scripture. It's the foundation of my life, and I can't live without it, so I don't know how to start without it. I don't know if you remember in Habakkuk 2:2, there's this little passage, it's just one verse, and in the context of that moment, God gave it to Habakkuk because he wanted him to write out a prophecy. And we know it as the book of Habakkuk. But it's very important what is in that verse. There's a principle that's very important throughout scripture and throughout time. And God told Habakkuk, he said, write the message so the one who reads it can run, is basically, I'm paraphrasing. So write the message in such a way that the one who reads it can run. And I really believe that this is important in the entire Word of God. God has given us his word that we can read it and understand it. And as we know, we can run the race of life that Christ has set before us. And we want every person in Georgia to have that experience of running the race of life that God has lined out for them. And I was thinking about this a couple of months ago. It's interesting how many times we've read the phrase in the Bible, as it is written. How many times have we read that phrase, as it is written? And I think it's just something we tend to take for granted. You know, I mean, it's just kind of, okay, there, as it is written. So we know it's very important. But obviously it was written to be read. Somebody was supposed to read it. And of course, we know that for not only many years in the world, but even in our world today, many cultures are oral learners only. They don't read. But someone at some point has to be able to read this so at least others can hear it. So we realize that God created us to be readers and at least listen to something being read, because it's woven throughout all of our experiences, but even throughout time. And it's something that is right in front of us in the Bible. But again, I honestly believe we just tend to take that for granted. You know, I'm thankful that when I was a little girl and I came to the age when I was learning to read, I had an opportunity to read the Bible for myself. And I was encouraged to do that. But the reason why we're having this conversation today, and we're going to talk about that, is because there are a whole lot of kids that really don't have that opportunity to read the Bible. And I think you're going to see that as we go through. So that's kind of the heart of what we're talking about today. So let me tell you a little bit about Mission Georgia first. So Mission Georgia is an initiative of the Georgia Baptist Mission Board. So as a family of churches, associations, and ministries in Baptist life, in Georgia, we have Mission Georgia to help us be on mission in our own mission field. So Mission Georgia it's been around for many years as an offering. Some of you may know that usually in the month of September, many churches and associations focus on our state mission offering. And it does do that. We gather around it in prayer. In fact, I brought for you all, I don't know if you've seen this, but each year we put out a prayer guide. And so I brought that so that you can have that. And we do have those available. If your church maybe didn't get them or you just didn't get one in your church, please let me know and we'd be glad to get more to you. But prayer is a big part of Mission Georgia. But the giving and the praying is really all about going in our own state. And so it's really embracing our own mission field. And so there's kind of the core value of Mission Georgia is we want to bring gospel-centered care to neighbors who are often farthest from the gospel. Now, what I mean by that is they're not far from it geographically because they're right here in Fayette County, or they're right here in Fulton, or they're where I live in Clarkston on the east side, or where I grew up down in Valdosta. So people are not far from the gospel geographically. They're far from the gospel circumstantially. We have many, many neighbors in our state who, just by the circumstance in their lives, they really are far from the gospel. They're as far from the gospel as somebody in South America or Ukraine or Sudan. They're just as far. There's almost as many hoops to go through to get to them as it would be to get on a plane and go overseas. So with Mission Georgia, we're really trying to say together as the body of Christ in Georgia, let's commit to care for our mission field, our neighbors, our communities. And we certainly do that continuing. We never set aside Acts 1:8 or the Great Commission, right? That's all within that. And so really that's the heart of Mission Georgia. And there are 5 issues that we focus on, and I do have the flyer here for you. It'll be up here on the screen as well. But there's 5 issues that Mission Georgia is specifically focusing on, and one of them is childhood literacy. So we're going to talk more in depth about that. But I do just want to mention the others that we're focusing on is foster care and adoption, pre and postnatal care, which that focuses on the well-being of the mom, her health, not only during pregnancy, but after giving birth. And I always have to say this, I just found out the newest statistic. Georgia is number 2 in the nation for maternal mortality, which that means the death of a mother during pregnancy or just after, all the way up to about almost 60 days is the technical time frame. So Georgia, our amazing state, our technologically, medically rich state, is number 2 in the nation for the death of moms during that pregnancy time. And I also just found out we're number 8 for infant mortality. Number 8. I'm just like, that's nothing that I want Georgia to be in the top 10 for, to say the least. But we're number 2 and number 8. And so Thomas Hammond, who's our executive director, he's a pastor. He's a pastor's kid from Georgia. When he began to find out about some of these issues, especially with moms during pregnancy, he said, this has got to be an issue that Mission Georgia is going to focus on. We've got to care for women in our state. We are pro-life. We're a very pro-life state. But how is it that we're number 2 and number 8 for 2 things we don't even want to be on the list for? So it's hard for me to just skip past that. All these issues are big. So human trafficking is also a big issue in Georgia, and it's in every county. So it's not just an Atlanta issue. It's not just a downtown issue or a truck stop issue. That's usually what we hear. It's in every community. In fact, we're going to feature, I'll give you all a heads up, for this year, for our Mission Georgia emphasis, the human trafficking story is actually going to focus on, I'll just say a teenager that was in a youth group here in this area who really got pulled into online trafficking. And so we're featuring it because the grandmother is very passionate about their story. And they want churches to understand it's among you. And so human trafficking is something that we're giving emphasis to. And then refugees and internationals as well. And like I say, I live in Clarkston, and so I have a wonderful opportunity to live on that mission field right here. And I just ask you to pray, especially right now as we're serving Afghan families and the trauma that's really come right out of the airport chaos that we all saw on TV. Just was sitting in the home of an apartment last night with an Afghan family, and through broken English and Farsi, we were talking and they were sharing their story, and it's very real. And so that's one example of many ways that we're, again, embracing our own state and the needs that we have here. So I want to show you just a quick video. Hopefully the sound's working. If I click the right things, we'll see. If not, then I'll tell you where you can see it online. So if you don't mind, Jimmy, just a quick video. Click it once more. Up. There's no sound. You want to fiddle with it? That's a good Southern word, right? When I lived out west, I would say words like that. They thought I was going to pick up a fiddle. While he's
there it is.
It must be a default.
Yeah,
It's turned on. Thank you. I'm glad y'all are
There we
flexible.
go. Now we're gonna have it. Okay, let's
Thank you, sir. I'm glad you know how to do all that back there.
oh, don't put too much.
Okay, okay. Not much to it. All right, hit enter. There we go.
Numbers, statistics, data. When we're talking about population demographics, numbers have names. Numbers are our neighbors. They are real people. A child in the Athens area has been waiting to be adopted since he was 4 years old. Now he's 12. Will you adopt him? There are 203 in foster care in Bibb County and only 56 homes for them. Statewide, 400 of our young neighbors in foster care will sleep in hotel rooms again tonight because there are not enough foster families in Georgia. Will you volunteer? Numbers are our neighbors. One of our neighbor families fled persecution in India and now lives in Decatur. They have several children, including one who is deaf. They live in an apartment with no furniture, beds, or other items for daily life. Will you help them? Many of our young neighbors in Moultrie, Thomasville, Tifton, Augusta, Savannah, Macon, Valdosta, Athens, and Dalton are being trafficked for sex. These cities have the highest rate of human trafficking outside Metro Atlanta. Would your church welcome them with all their brokenness? Numbers are our neighbors. Georgia is the third deadliest state in America for expectant mothers with little to no access to doctors or health care. Pre- and postnatal care is essential to their survival. Will your church reach out and serve them? In Bibb County, 4 out of every 10 3rd to 8th grade neighbors are not reading at grade level. And in Hancock County, more than half the children in 3rd grade are not reading at grade level. Will you read to them? In Luke chapter 10, a teacher of the law asked Jesus, "Who is my neighbor?" Jesus proceeded to tell him the story of the Good Samaritan. And then he asked, "Which of these 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" "The one who showed mercy to him," he said. Then Jesus told him, "Go and do the same." As we go, we bring the gospel of Jesus in word and action. We are Mission Georgia. Go and do the same.
Well, as you saw, we were number 3, now we're number 2. And I will also say a testimony to the Lord, that first little boy that's been waiting to be adopted through foster care, I found out about him from someone. And so I said, you know what, we're going to put that in the midst of our prayer guide. And I know people are going to start praying for this little boy, even though we don't know him. He's a real little boy. I followed up with the person who told me about him, and I said, hey, do you remember telling me about that little boy? And she was like, yeah, I do. And she didn't know that I really took it to heart. And I said, can you tell me about that? And she said, the family who's been fostering him, after all, same family had fostered him. It was a little boy with a disability. And she said, suddenly they decided they were supposed to adopt him. I say, well, I know who did that. That was Jesus. And so those are real stories. And that is our emphasis. We do hear a lot of numbers, and I'm about to tell you a lot of numbers, but numbers are our neighbors. Numbers are your neighbors. And so we want to help better understand that. So I want to talk specifically now for the next few minutes specifically about reading. So I want to tell you a couple of things about reading in Georgia. So as was mentioned in the video, 48% across the board in Georgia of children in public school are not reading at grade level. So almost half of children in public schools are not reading at grade level. Now, I just did a quick look, and I looked for Fayette County. So the numbers I'm about to tell you are Fayette County. So if you're in a different county, you can do an easy Google search. I did it this morning just to see what was the most current numbers that I could find. You can Google, put in your county, like I put in reading scores, Fayette County, Georgia. And it gave me this update. So in Fayette County, 35% of elementary aged children cannot read at grade level. So I will say, and I always want to acknowledge this, we always want to acknowledge this. We are so thankful for our teachers and schools who are working so hard to care for our children. And as we emphasize this need, we don't want to pull away from these amazing people. And thank you. I've already met a couple of you who are teachers and school professionals, and thank you so much for what you've done. Fayette County is actually above average for children. So the converse of that is 65% of children in Fayette County are reading above grade level or at or above grade level. And that is marvelous. That is so marvelous. So we are so thankful for that. But there are 35%. So basically about 3 to 4 children, 3 out of every 4 children that you encounter, how do I say it? 30 to 40 would be the better way to say it. So 30 to 40 children out of 100 are struggling to read. And you can do a lot more research on this. We've done a lot of research on this. I've got so many facts, it'll bore you after a while. It'll just turn into a blur. But what we discovered, science and research has discovered that if a child does not read well by 4th grade, they are on a trajectory to not live well the rest of their life. In fact, it's really interesting that they even give a study, a very specific study from, I don't know, it's been 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago now, found that 75% of children who did not read well by 4th grade were more likely to end up in crime or welfare. And it's verified by the fact that over 70% of our prison population are functionally illiterate. So we see the front end, and then we see the result. And so literacy is really important to the overall well-being of a child. And it shows in the stats, but I want to drill down beyond the stats. I read this recently, and I thought this was such a beautiful description. This was just out of U.S. News and World Report. In my work with these 5 areas, sometimes I just Google topics and just see what's the current, thought. And this was an article about reading. Why is reading important? And the very first sentence got me. When shapes take on meaning as letters, and those letters start to form words, it can be magical for children, right? We all know that, for all of us. Yet for many young students, the magic just isn't happening. And so it is amazing. Like, I think about how you teachers teach children to read. I don't know how you do it. Like, it's just mind-blowing to me how you take something so practical and make that come to life. But what we're realizing is, and certainly because of the pandemic, all of our reading scores are going down. Children are struggling more to read. We all know why. And that's something that schools were already struggling with, and now even more because of the pandemic, it's even more difficult. And so we just feel like it's God's time, that before the pandemic happened, God put on the heart of really Thomas Hammond again to say, we've got to help our communities help their kids learn how to read. And then the pandemic happens, and now it becomes even more important. So in all these needs, we want to step into them, really with the hope of the gospel, but in practical terms. Jesus changes things. I mean, and if he doesn't, I want to say, is Jesus there? Because Jesus changes things. And so this is one of the things that should show up. And let me just mention here, and I'm really talking to you as church leaders and influencers. I want to say things to you for you to go back and say to others that you influence, whether it's a Sunday school, a WMU group, youth group, deacons, staff, whoever it is. I want to say these things to you because I want you to say it to others. And one of the key reasons that we are focusing on childhood literacy is, number one, yes, if a child reads well, they will be more likely to live well. But number two, we believe the bedrock of the Christian faith is that we can have a personal relationship with God, our Creator, through Jesus. And he has primarily set that up, that we have that relationship as we know his word. His word, the Bible, is what tells us we can have that. And it tells us how to walk in that. And so we believe that's incredibly important to our faith. And so when somebody says, why are we doing it? Well, that is the biggest reason why. We believe God created every person to have a relationship with him. And we do that primarily through reading and knowing his word. And so really it is, we want kids to read well so they live well. But even more than that, we want them to know the God who created them. I want to show you our Read Georgia video. And as we show you that, I want you to keep in mind that these videos are available on our website, which I've got that on the flyer there for you. It's on the back of the prayer guide. So as you see these videos, just know that they're available to you, and you can see them later. So this, that's fine. Go right ahead, Jimmy. This will be a little longer, but I'll tell you about Read Georgia.
We had lots of kids who were coming to Sunday school who couldn't read. So we decided at that point to start a literacy missions program so that they could understand God's word. Kids learn to read from kindergarten to third grade, and from third grade up, they read to learn. Well, if you're not reading fluently by third grade, you have difficulty in math, science, social studies, every subject area. And then what eventually happens is some of them mentally drop out. Those kids later on have problems getting jobs, reading basic applications, sustaining jobs, having a higher income. Our prison population is highly populated by people who can't read. So literacy is just an important factor in every aspect of our society. Read Georgia is a program that partners with local schools. The Read Georgia volunteers go into the schools and they work with second graders on those basic sight word skills. It was started because one of our literacy coordinators just had a passion for her community.
We were hearing some accounts of the children struggling in school. I talked to Belinda about what we could do, and so I got together with other volunteers, and we just decided to write our own program, and we called it Read Georgia. Read Georgia is a very simple, very easy program to not only use, but also to set up. It's not costly, and yet it gives the churches a chance to meet the families of children in the community that need us to love them in the love of Christ. We're here tonight for a training besides our community and our volunteers that are being trained. We have 2 other communities that are being trained tonight with the whole idea that they're going to go back work in their churches, their community, and start a Read Georgia.
We went to a Mission Georgia round table over in Cordele, Georgia, that Lorna Bius was leading. We're from Americas, and we heard about the Read Georgia program, and we're very interested in, and our pastor is very interested. So we're here to learn more about it.
They have 4 celebrations during the year. They bring in the students and their parents for these celebrations. There are games, they give them books, but they also share the gospel. There's a clear presentation of the gospel at each of these meetings. And when the parents see that you love their child, they're more open and receptive to hearing the good news of the Lord Jesus Christ.
Well, we had one little boy that was just not making it in school, so much so that they put him in a special needs class. But after working with a volunteer, in a matter of about 7 or 8 weeks, he suddenly caught on to the words, began to flourish. It was just the love the volunteer was sharing with him that just kind of sparked him. So before the year was out, he actually left the special needs class, went back to regular class. Every school that has a child in it that's struggling needs to have a Read Georgia program.
If you want to impact crime, if you want to impact people who need public assistance, whether it's welfare or food stamps, if you want to impact the jobless rate, be the hands and feet of Jesus. Use Read Georgia to help a 2nd grader learn to read.
All right, so we are thankful that Read Georgia was created. If you gave to the Mission Georgia offering, you helped create this resource, and we're really thankful. Belinda there, that you just met, is actually nearby you all. She's out of town this week, otherwise she would have been here with me. But she's very nearby. She taught in the Atlanta school system reading. She became a floating coach as well across the city, but for 30 years, she's now retired, and she and you met Donna Milner down in Fitzgerald, basically helped create this tool. And that's really what I want to share with you specifically about. So I want to say a couple of things that might be helpful. Do you mind pulling up the, I think it's the second PowerPoint slide after the video. It always goes blank on us.
Oh, okay, just move it down.
Yep, just go to that next one, yep. So there's a couple of basic things I want to tell you about Read Georgia. Thank you. So basically, Read Georgia is a 1 hour a week volunteer opportunity. I mean, it might be an hour and 15 minutes, depending on your drive and all that stuff. It's basically at the school, it's about an hour a week. And you do follow sight words. It was mentioned, Belinda mentioned at the end, for 2nd graders, it can actually be done 2nd, 3rd, or 4th grade. That's really determined by the school. A lot of things about Read Georgia will be determined by the school that you partner with. They may say we've got 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and that's totally fine, just whatever the school assigns you. But the reason why it focuses on is because it works on sight words. So you're specifically the teacher, you don't have to come up with a plan. That's the great thing about it. The teacher has the plan. They know the students who are struggling, and what they do is they, when you set up this program, and I'll mention that in a little bit, is basically they pull a child out and you go with Johnny or Susie to the library at the school, and you sit down in an area and they have a list of words that you begin to work on and some activities. So basically there's a folder you're given, you sit down with your child and you're their reading buddy. Just like what you saw there in the video, you begin to encourage them and literally help them learn words. And sometimes you'll be given a book that they can practice reading along with it. But basically you spend 30 minutes with some simple sight word activities, and then the child goes back to class. And either the next child is brought to you, or maybe you wait a few minutes and then the child comes to you. But basically that's what it is. So it follows the school year. So it's during the school hours, it's during the school schedule. It's not during summer, not during spring break, all those kind of things. So you're just following the school schedule. And I did want to mention, Belinda talked about the outreach that can be done. That is always done outside of school hours. And I want to be really clear about this because you can get a door closed before it ever even gets to open with a school. This is not about you going and offering a ministry at the school. This is about you as a Christ follower going to the school and volunteering, just like an atheist would, just like anybody else would. But we know that as you go and you serve, that you become light in that school. And the stories of how that happens is amazing. And a great way that opens doors is it does give an opportunity to say to the school staff, hey, our Read Georgia Club, our team would like to throw a party for kids in Read Georgia, but also other kids if they'd like to come. And we're going to throw a party and we're going to celebrate reading and, you know, kind of do the thing we all love to do. We love to throw a little fellowship, as we call it in Baptist world. And so that is your opportunity to really take those next steps. Some people do it once a month, some people do it once a quarter. There's different ways that you can do that. But I do want to be very clear about that because as we all know, we need to be respectful of our community partners and we want to be among them. We need more Christians to be in our community. And I don't want to upset anybody when I say this. This is always when you get trouble. Forgive me, Jimmy, but we need to quit being mad about things we can't do in school. And we need to start doing the things we can do. Okay, so is that all right? Can I say that? Y'all give me a lot of grace on that. And so there are so many things that we can do in our schools and communities, and Read Georgia is definitely one of them. So let me mention real quick that I've got a flyer for you so that you can see how Read Georgia works, literally. We've got it where it lays out what the mission of it is. Now, I do want to say this is not the flyer you give to a school. I'll tell you about that flyer. This is the flyer that you go back to your church, your small group, your friends, and you say, hey, I'm thinking about this thing called Read Georgia. Here, look at this. Let's talk about it. Let's pray about it. And this gives you step by step what you need to do and kind of the expectations of what it would look like for you to bring Read Georgia to a local school. And I'll also say here that really a reasonable timeline at this point to think through and consider would be to start praying, talking with some people about it, cast vision, see if there's a response, and aim towards starting in the fall when the school year starts back. So if you're super eager and you feel like, you know, you could jump in and start a Read Georgia program right away, by all means do it. Like if you feel safe, you know, good about that, do it. There's time. You can jump in and do it the spring semester and, you know, even help the final 8 weeks. I mean, that would be fabulous. So don't feel like you can't, but I would say generally overall, most people would say, let's think about it. We need to talk, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So that would be a reasonable goal to make. So this definitely tells you the steps, the things in particular, like there's minimal cost, approximately $300 annual. That's not a fee that you pay to us. That's just things that you buy for your Read Georgia program, folders and stickers and pens and, you know, just kind of those basic things. So that's not a fee that you pay us. It's just items that you would purchase. And there are things possibly with the school, they may require a background check. So things like that. And that's mostly determined by the school. Now, the most important thing I want to tell you is that at the bottom here, you'll see our website, missiongeorgia.org. You're more than welcome to go to that right now. Missiongeorgia.org is where you fill out a very simple form. And I would say it works best if like 1 or 2 people from a church fill that out. You don't need everybody from your church to fill it out because basically that form automatically gives you access to the Read Georgia manual. And this is it right here. So you'll get it digitally as soon as you fill out that form. And what I would suggest to you is to take that, the immediate email response that you'll get, click on the link, and you will download this immediately. And so our suggestion would be to download it to your computer and then make plans to print it. You can certainly send the link that you have to others in your church and say, hey, let's look at this together. Because basically this is what's going to walk you through how to do a Read Georgia program. It will even have on the downloadable that's in here, it will have the form that you would print out. It's a similar kind of flyer. That's what you would print out and you would take to the school to tell them, this is what we would like to offer to do. Could we start a conversation? And it gives the school the starting points and the steps and expectations from their standpoint. Does that make sense? So this is really primarily for your church or your association. The form that's in the manual, and you'll see it towards the back, is for the school. And so basically what I tell people, I have to say, I'm so amazed that our team put this together. I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful, fabulous. You'll be blessed reading through it. I mean, it is so rich with the heart of Jesus in this, but it's very practical as well. And basically, if you've ever done anything with VBS, it's very similar to when you receive the VBS Director's Guide, and it tells you the overview, director, you'll have a scheduler, somebody coordinating during the week. You'll have what's called here Bible Club. That's that thing that you can have either once a month or even some do it once a week or once a quarter. So that would be that person, the Bible Club director, the volunteer tutor's guide. So that would be what you would print off specifically for your volunteers. And so it's all in here. And then this appendix has a ton of games and activities and just a lot of helpful information back here as well. It is included in here is if you want to do a kind of a casting vision meeting about what Read Georgia is and how it will work in your church. It's even got your step-by-step. Welcome everybody, open with prayer, show the video, say this. I mean, it's literally like VBS or Sunday school. And it takes it off the page when somebody says, I'm not a teacher, I don't know what to do. No problem. Just turn to page 47 and it'll walk you right through it. So one of the things that was really important to Donna and really the whole team, Belinda as well, is they wanted to make it that any layperson in a church could pick up Read Georgia and could start connecting with their school and have a healthy and vibrant relationship. Now, I will say as well, they are available. We call them our Read Georgia coaches. They are available to you when you have a question or hit snags. We're also connecting churches to one another to say, hey, what did you do when you hit this point? Because it's just going to be different situations that you encounter. And really, it's something that God will lead you in. But this manual is really what's going to take you through it. So you definitely want to, I would just suggest to all of you, just go ahead and sign up, download it, look through it. Doesn't obligate you. We will not robocall you or anything like that. But go ahead and look through it and just begin to pray and see how God might use you with this. Now, I will say lastly, and then I'd love for us to do just a little bit of Q&A, and I'm going to eat lunch with y'all, so I'm still here too, so we don't have to rush. But one of the things I'd also encourage you to consider is this is a part of a larger, Jenny, do you mind skipping ahead to
Go ahead.
right there. This is a part of Read Georgia Childhood Literacy is a part of another larger effort of our Georgia Baptist Convention, and that's our Literacy Missions Network. And I don't know if you know about that, but you can go to the website right here, georgiabaptist.org/events. They are putting on a training March 25th and 26th. Read Georgia is a part of what is called Tutoring Children and Youth. So that's a national effort among Southern Baptists to do what we're talking about. So Read Georgia and childhood literacy is one piece of a larger effort. And so I just want to mention that that's available to you March 25th and 26th. I'll be there on the 26th. March 25th is when you can actually go through and get more training specifically on tutoring children and youth. But I will also mention they are going to have training workshops there for things like ESL and adult reading and writing. And so it's an amazing network of people. We feel like it's our secret sauce. We don't want to be secret. So this is a great resource. This, if you go to georgiabaptist.org and instead of events, put literacy missions, you'll see their whole page. Tons of resources, tons of coaches, tons of things. So definitely want you to know about that. And then I would just say, lastly, that consider how can your church simply collect new books and get them into neighborhoods? Because that is one of the biggest indicators of success in reading, even at school, is do children have books in their homes? And it's incredible how few books children today have in their homes that they can read. So if you're like, gosh, I don't want to wait till the fall to do something, there's your something. Collect books and then talk with your school and say, can these books be sent home with kids? Is there an apartment complex we should just go and have a book party and, you know, give books out? So giving away books is a great way to begin serving. And also I would say, I know where I live in Clarkston, there's opportunities to come and actually do a mission trip that's solely centered around helping kids learn how to read. And so I don't know if you've ever thought about doing a mission trip that's based on helping kids read, but it's fabulous. And it's really what we do in Clarkston for several weeks during spring break season in Clarkston, because kids are still in school. But spring break teams come and want to do something. So we kind of stumbled on this. And we found that now it's the thing we do during spring break. So there's things you can even do in the summer. You can have a weekly, just a reading club for kids that where you go out to a local park or apartment complex and you just set up balloons and have some snacks and have a group. They do this at libraries. I mean, why can't we do it too? You know, I mean, read a book with kids and then let them pick out a book to take home with them. There's so many ways that we can interact. And really that's the heart of it. We want an opportunity to interact with kids and be an encouraging influence in their life, because we know that is the biggest issue that so many kids struggle with today. So we just feel like it's a great opportunity practically to do that. Okay, now I gave you a whole lot. And I want to see if there's any questions or thoughts, and then we'll see how much you got here. And then Jimmy, I'll just hand it back over to you for dismissing us to lunch. But what questions do you have? Is there something you were thinking about and I didn't answer? Or something got stirred up? Who's going to break the ice?
I started the Tutoring Children and Youth Workshop.
Okay.
It's very involved.
Yes.
You have things online that you need to complete and,
Right.
you know. So Read Georgia is not as involved as that.
Right. Yeah. It's
Everything you need is in that little book.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
It's involved. Yeah.
that is really involved.
Right. It
Even
is.
as a former educator, it's involved.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yes, this is a much more simplified version. Yeah. That's a great question.
I have a question.
Yes.
I heard you say something about the teacher would send somebody to you in the library, and for 30 minutes, does that mean you get 2 students?
Right. That's right.
2 students.
You'll have 2 students a week.
Will you probably get the same student every week for a while so that you build a relationship
Yes.
with them?
Right. Yes. You will definitely, probably as long as through the school year that they're needed.
Get the same student.
Right. So you would preferably have 2 students, but if you graduate one out, you'll get a new one. So, yeah. But yes, that is a big part of it. And the schools recognize that too. Yeah. That's great.
Is Read Georgia already in any of the schools in our area?
Yep. And one down in Fitzgerald was the first one.
I'm saying in this area.
Oh, in this area, I don't know yet. There's a lot of people who are downloading the manuals. And so, but we don't always hear back from them if they,
How does it work with with starting the program? Okay, so like, you know, if I was interested in doing this and I wanted to start a program, is it just, I go to whatever school is closest to our church? So like, what if my church is close to this school and her church is close to this school and we all go? Do you do it through the association where you kind of all work
It's
together
good.
to go to the different schools?
yeah, it's good to
Or-
definitely coordinate, to see, to ask.
Right.
And we do hope in time, people will let us know. And I do follow up with one email. I don't want to scare you.
Right.
I will send one follow-up email and say, hey, a couple months ago, you came and downloaded it. Have you done anything for this purpose?
Right.
But yeah, I would say definitely you'll have a great situation. You can check together as an association. Certainly if you go to the school and they say, hey, we've already got a church,
Okay.
you can consider reaching out to the church and say, hey, can we join you and help you to expand it out? Or would you say, since y'all got this, we'll go to another school? So it's flexible.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you in Fayette County? Okay, just because I knew I was coming to this and had been interested in it, I contacted the Board of Education this week, and they gave me the name of Caroline Schmidt, and she, for the whole county of Fayette, I guess the Fayette school system, she is the coordinator for ELA, English, yeah, I told her I didn't know all the acronyms, but anyway, I said, I got the medical ones down, but I don't have that. K-5 coordinator.
What was her name?
Her name is Caroline Schmidt. And I emailed her and just told her who I was, that I was from the church, that I was coming to a meeting today about Mission Georgia, which was a program, blah, blah, blah. And she emailed back and said that she was very interested in talking to us about that. And she also referred me to Cora Davis, and she's the head of the mentoring program for Fayette County. So these two ladies, I think, are very good contacts for us,
That's good.
rather than walking into like an elementary school.
Right.
They could probably say, well, we've got a lot of kids at this school
Right.
that have issues.
That's what I was
or-
thinking, if you have one person who could be like, well,
Yeah,
Flat Creek's contacted me and I've sent them
Yes.
to this school, but you could go to this school.
right, and Fayette's, I mean, it's not a huge county, but the schools are kind of farther. I'd rather go to one closer to my home, and you would too, and would probably know people there too.
Yes.
So I think if we could work together as an association and work with these two ladies, and just let them know which churches in our association are interested, they could say, oh, Flat Creek is right down the road from, Birch or Crabapple. Those are the two
Right.
closest to us, I guess. So, and then I know our church has a relationship this year. We were assigned by our education director to have relationships with the teachers at a lot of the elementary schools that we take breakfast and stuff. So we could also tap into that with the teachers there in the elementary schools. But I think these two ladies, and so Miss Davis was supposed to call me, and she's off today and tomorrow, but she's gonna call me Monday or Tuesday, she said, to talk
That's great.
and just see. So I think it would be good to go through these two ladies, unless you already have contact in a particular school, so that we're not all going to the same
Right.
school, and you're like,
Yeah.
I could just see it.
go away.
Leave us alone.
I know, that's why we always talk about with Georgia Baptist, you better get ready, because if we tell them there's a need. That's a great point though, and that's all really good. So this was really good, helpful for everyone. It's eventually gonna get to your superintendent's office, and if your superintendent approves it, all the schools within will have permission to, but you still have to go to the school, obviously, and get that conversation going. So sometimes you start, if you have that connection superintendent's office, but if you don't, it's always good for a church to say, hey, you're my neighbor. We're close to you. That's gonna make sense. We'd like to start the process conversation. We know that we need your superintendent's office involved. Can you tell us how to step that out? And most schools do have somebody who's in charge of that, and so that's very helpful. So yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
I have a question from the online folks.
Awesome.
One is, they're just asking, and I don't know if we know the answer, but are most schools allowing volunteers in right now due to COVID?
Depends, every school system's different. So
Every-
some are
so check.
open. Yes, so some are open, talking to the person online. Some are open, some are not. And so we're just telling people, if they say they're not taking volunteers, go ahead and keep that conversation going. And that would be a perfect time to say, well, since, we're not allowed to come, could we collect books to get to you? Is there something we can do? To go ahead and show them you're really willing and you want to help them. So that's a great question. So it'll just depend on what's going on here locally. These are great questions. Yes.
Okay, I have a silly question. I'm from Clayton County and I'm a retired Clayton County teacher. Is Clayton County in the Fairburn Association or is it just Clayton? Good question.
Do we have any churches in Clayton?
I don't think we do.
but that's okay. We still love you.
We'll do
Are
whatever
you in
you
Metro
want.
Association? Like with you, Well, I go
I'm wondering-
to McDonough Road Baptist, which is right there on the
Well,
line.
you're
Would
in.
that be
our-
south side?
you're in our
McDonough Road
association.
is.
Yeah, okay.
But then we have schools really near in
Yeah.
Clayton County that I know.
Sure.
Oh, it
Well,
doesn't matter.
yes,
Yeah.
and you can take the principal, yeah, it doesn't, it's not geographically bound. And I do feel like I need to say right here too, this is reminding me, so I'm glad you're asking this. There are reading programs already in use. There's several. We're not trying to be the best one. I know people want me to say that. We're one. We're one. And so if there's one already in the school, yes, start it. But if you go and you find out they've got a reading program, go ahead and get involved. The high value here is not that you're doing Read Georgia. The high value is that you're just like you're asking. That's what I know there's a need and I want to get involved. And so it may be that you can help start a Read Georgia program at a school that isn't started, but if there is an opportunity that a school says, we actually already have a reading program, but we don't have enough volunteers, sign your church up, sign it up. So yeah, use this in a way that will help you in your context. There's lots of flexibility, lots of usefulness to it, but it's not so rigid that you can't kind of figure those kind of questions out.
Are there formal training events for this, or are you pretty much on your own? Download it, read it, and you'll get it, that kind of?
There may be, we get a lot of questions for that, and there might be, but I think the reason Belinda and Donna set it up this way is because they don't want people to feel like they have to wait for that or do it to do the Read Georgia program. So I would definitely say if you all wanted some training, it's certainly a very open possibility. But Belinda will definitely say, read the manual first and then let's talk about it, because they really have tried to, so that it equips and empowers you to be the multiplier and it doesn't get log jammed with a few people or a few trainings.
I would think for people who have education backgrounds, if that's who's starting the program,
Yes,
then they could do a training within their group
That's
of
right.
people to say, okay, these are some great activities to do for learning sight words and,
Yes.
kind of practice through some of that. Because, it would be overwhelming for somebody who hasn't been
right.
in that situation. I mean, people have kids and they do homework with kids and stuff, but especially for older people who haven't had kids at home in
That's
a long
right.
time.
Yeah, that's
So,
right.
Just kind of have some action points where they can say, okay, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, and we do hope that this will help churches acknowledge and elevate I call them missionaries, teachers, in our schools to say, hey, can you speak into this? Could you be a part of the training? Could you come and, they may not even be a part of the Read Georgia program at their school, but they could give good guidance.